When you think of Nelson Mandela, you might think of a political giant, a president, a revolutionary. And he was all of those things, of course. But his life was also this deep, profound exploration of what it means to be human. So today, we're going to dive into some of his most powerful ideas about oppression, courage, and what true freedom really looks like, all through his own words.
Okay, so here's our roadmap. We'll start by looking at the deep wound left by apartheid. Then, we'll explore what courage really meant to Mandela. It might not be what you think. After that, we'll get into this fascinating paradox of how oppression can, strangely enough, create heroes. And we'll wrap up with his incredible vision for a new kind of freedom for everyone.
All right, first things first. To really get what Mandela was up against, we have to understand the system he devoted his life to taking down. He didn't just call it a bad system. He called it an extraordinary human disaster, and for very good reason.
Now, on paper, apartheid is defined simply as a political system that separates people by race. It sounds almost clinical, doesn't it? But that simple definition hides a brutal reality that poisoned every single aspect of life in South Africa for almost 50 years.
And just listen to the words Mandela uses here. He's not using political jargon. He calls it a deep and lasting wound, a profound hurt. He's making it so clear that this wasn't just about unfair laws or policies. It was a deep collective trauma inflicted on the soul of his people.
And make no mistake, this system was built entirely on the idea of white supremacy. It was designed from the ground up to deny the majority of people their most basic human rights, creating these two completely separate and profoundly unequal worlds. It was a society literally defined by division and incredible suffering.
So how in the world do you stand up to a system like that? Well, it takes a very specific kind of courage. And for Mandela, this wasn't something he was just born with. It was something he had to actively learn.
This right here, this might be one of the most important things Mandela ever taught the world. He completely flips the script on what courage is. Most of us think it's about not being afraid. He says, no, that's not it at all. It's about feeling that fear and choosing to act anyway.
So you see, for Mandela, courage isn't a feeling, it's an action. It's a victory. It's that conscious decision to face down your fear and overcome it. That, to him, was what real bravery was all about.
And he didn't just think this up in theory. He learned this definition by watching his comrades in the struggle. He saw men and women endure things you and I can barely imagine. Torture, isolation, without breaking. Their ability to bounce back, to keep their spirit whole, was a kind of strength that he said just defies the imagination.
And this incredible resilience, well, it leaves us to a really fascinating and, in a way, tragic paradox that Mandela saw play out over his long years of struggle.
Think about it. The entire goal of apartheid was to crush the human spirit, to break people down so they would just submit. But it had this completely unintended, backfiring effect. It actually forged an unbreakable strength in the people it was trying to destroy.
It's wild, right? The system of oppression literally created its own greatest enemies. It produced these leaders of just extraordinary courage, wisdom, and generosity who rose up to tear it down.
What a powerful idea! It's like Mandela came to see that his country's greatest wealth wasn't the gold and diamonds under the ground, it was its people. People who had been refined, just like diamonds, under the most immense and terrible pressure. But then he adds this other crucial layer to his thinking. He realized the system dehumanized everyone, including the people in charge. The oppressors, he said, were prisoners too. They were just locked behind different bars, the bars of their own hatred and prejudice. So for him, true liberation meant freeing both sides.
So, after all that struggle, what did victory finally look like? Well, it wasn't just about ending the old, broken system. It was about building something totally new, a complete reimagining of what South Africa could even be.
On the day he was inaugurated as president, you could literally see these stark contrasts everywhere. The very buildings that had once been the symbols of white power were now hosting what he called a rainbow gathering. The same generals who would have arrested him in a heartbeat were now saluting him and pledging their loyalty. I mean, what a moment.
And maybe one of the most powerful symbols of this new unity came from music. In his autobiography, Mandela describes the moment two national anthems were sung. One was Nkosi Sikelel' i-Afrika, the anthem of Black South Africans in the liberation movement. The other was Die Stem, the old anthem of the apartheid government. These two songs, once symbols of hate and division, were now being sung together as a chorus for a new nation.
Mandela's vision for what came next was crystal clear. Freedom wasn't just the end of apartheid. That was just the starting line. The real work was the new fight. The fight to free every single person from any kind of bondage, whether it was poverty, racism, sexism, you name it.
And this really brings us to the absolute core of his entire philosophy. He believed that no one is born hating another person because of their skin color or their background or their religion. People learn to hate. And his powerful argument was this: if hate is something that can be learned, then surely love can be taught. Because for Nelson Mandela, love is what comes more naturally to the human heart.